was living in London, and I lived through the Blitz when Hitler was trying to knock us out, but he couldn't. I was living right in London, and I was going to school, and I didn't have a sweetheart before the war. I was brought up in a family of girls, and you couldn't be seen with the boys. What motivated you to choose nursing? I went to school, and we didn't have grand graduations or anything like that. You worked until, you went to school and then you went looking for a job.
Mm-hmm.
And I had taken, typewriting and shorthand and things in school. So I went out as a typist and worked in, I think the first job I had was typing envelopes. Very boring, but I had a job, and I was earning my own money. And then I went as a secretary to two funny men. I thought they were funny. And then a friend of mine said she's going to sign up for nursing. And I said, I think I said, oh, I'd like that. So I went and applied too, and got into a nursing school. And you didn't go to university for that. You went right on the wards. And of course that's when a lot of the trained nurses had gone off to war. And so they needed us, and we were just like little slaves. Just had to do everything because some of the orderlies too went off. So we were looking after patients and washing their tables and all that sort of thing. We learned how to make a bed properly. And then I lived through the Blitz when the government built air raid shelters in everybody's backyard.
Yeah.
And when we heard the airplanes coming, we'd have to run and sit there all night maybe. And it was quite horrible, but I was young, and young people can always have fun. And I remember one thing that I saw one day when I was on a bus going somewhere, and we came across a place where the whole side of the house was gone. But away up in the top floor there was a shelf, and it had a row of cups and saucers on it.
And they survived
And they didn't get broken.
That's amazing.
So there were a lot of silly things like that. So yes, so when all the Canadian and American soldiers came over to help us, they were our friends. And so it was all right to talk to them, and maybe Papa would arrive home with one under his arm, not my Papa, but in general. He had one under his arm and say, I've invited this nice Canadian boy to come and have supper with us. So it was very friendly. So when I had a date, and I was waiting for my date, and this Canadian soldier, and did you see his picture?
No, I don't. I think we've seen some pictures, but I don't know if there was a picture of the fellow that.
It's inside one of the books there. He was so handsome, and he said hello, and so of course I said hello to him, because that was allowed then, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm waiting for a date," and so he stayed and chatted for a while, and then he said, "Oh, after about 10 minutes, it looks as though he's not coming. Would you like to go for a cup of tea?" Then when Philip wrote that up,
Oh yeah, he said it was a
"Would you
drink,
like to go for a drink?"
and that was not what it
Which
was.
put a whole different light on it.
Yes.
And that isn't what he said.
Okay.
We did years later.
Mm-hmm.
We went for a cup of tea that day, and that's how I met him.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I guess we really liked each other right away, and so then he was in England, of course, and then he was sent overseas from there into Europe, and so before he went, he asked me if I'd marry him, and I said I would.
Yeah.
So then he finally came back, and I remember we arranged the wedding, and I had it set for a certain time, and he didn't show up. That was because his leave was cancelled, and that happened 2 or 3 times.
Yes.
And my friends were feeling sorry for me because they knew I was going to get dumped, you know. But he turned up, and we were married, and at the time we were married, we went to the Government House and registered me as the wife of a Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
So they would arrange to ship me over here.
Is that all that you had to do, or did you have to, like, was there paperwork or anything?
Pardon?
Was there more paperwork than that, or?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Oh yes. And but you had to do the only way you could come. Otherwise, he would have had to pay to get me over.
Oh, I see.
And fire bombs. So he was out in that a lot. And so my mother, I had 3 sisters, and my mother had evacuated to a safe place way out of London, and so she was there with the girls. And there was one time when Albert had leave, and I took him up to meet my mother. Oh, he was just a friend then,
Yeah.
and so we stayed overnight with her, and she said, "Are you serious about this young man?" And I said, "He's a Canadian." And then I think about a week later I called her and told her, and she said, "I knew that." So the name of the boat I travelled to was the Samaria. How did your family feel about you leaving? Oh well, we got married in England, and my mother loved Albert right from the beginning. And
You have done quite a bit of community service for stuff in Sussex. Like, why did you get involved in public service?
I don't think I planned any of it. I organised the War Brides group
Mm-hmm.
because there were quite a few of us here, and some of the important ladies who, you know, they thought they were important in those days, and they got us together and had us to a tea, and suggested that we form a club.
Mm-hmm.
So and somehow I was named president. I didn't say anything, but they just picked on me, and so we had that running for a long, long time, and we had a special train that took us to Ottawa at one time after we got to be known, and we got involved in a lot of different things. I don't know where I've got this all written down somewhere. I don't have any idea where it is, and that was to keep the war brides in touch with each other,
Mm-hmm.
because some of them, when they came to Canada, they'd land in some godforsaken spot. You know, nobody knew, and they'd be the only ones there. So that got started. So that was the war brides, and then I started my shop because I did a lot of sewing and knitting and handwork. Did a lot of it. And we had to go to St. John to get supplies, and it suddenly occurred to me, and I opened a shop in the window front of a
Mhm.
lawyer here, I forget his name too, and I think I told you, I made shelves out of the
Blocks, cinder blocks.
the rocks and boards, and so that started me on the hobby horse, and that came to be the most favourite store in Sussex,
Mm-hmm.
because I've seen kids like your age and younger and say they love to come to Sussex because they come to the hobby horse.
Mm-hmm.
Because I went away and took courses, and I learned to make something, and I put it together in a plastic bag. Maybe it would cost 25 cents or 50 cents or whatever, and then I teach how to make them. and so that's what little kids liked. And then, what else did I get into? Oh yes, and I had my stores going, and I opened a beauty parlour too. That happened by accident, but and then
Parlor?
and then one of my neighbours in the shops came and put a paper down on the table and said, "You're running for town council." So I got on town council. I was the only woman. They never had a woman on town council before.
I read something about that.
Eventually I became deputy mayor.
Deputy mayor.
And it was funny when I'd sit on council with all these men, before I said anything I'd say, "If I may," and ask permission. And did I tell you about the man who was sitting beside me, and he was not a nice man at all. And he said something quite derogatory about women. So I stood up, picked up my chair, and turned to him, because it was a bit embarrassing, you know. And I was wondering how I was going to handle it, but I turned it against him, picked up my chair, and said, "Would you like to say that again?" And the whole council just roared with laughter, and he looked like a fool. And then as the elections came around, the mayor was, Emily Palmer was the mayor, she was a lawyer, and we were good friends. And then the person who got the most votes for council became deputy mayor. So I was deputy mayor for quite a while. Everywhere I went, it seemed somebody wanted to back me into a corner and tell me something that they thought should be done on council. And so then I got, what else did I start? Oh yes, the Little Jackie Fund. And he's a handsome young man, isn't he? Well, his teeth were in such bad shape that he couldn't talk properly. You know, there were quite a few of them who had this problem. And so it was a war bride who came to me, and her family were quite poor. They certain orthodontics was very expensive. And she said, "Do you know anywhere that I can apply for some money to help this boy?" So I had a few friends around at the time, and I discussed it with them, and we started the Little Jackie Fund. And we advertised that we wanted to help this boy, and it got on the radio or something, and there was a woman going by on the highway, and she heard it. She came in and put $50 in the bank for us, and we raised, well, eventually we and I had the whole files on every little somebody said, "Oh, we're going to call it the Little Jackie Fund." I didn't have anything to do with the name. And so we had, I guess we did 200 of them, and raised an enormous amount of money. So I was very busy with that for a while. And then I was guest speaker somewhere, and I forget what it was, at a ladies' group. And so I got up to speak, and I said, "I expect you're all so excited because a woman is in this position, and should be. But what are you doing about it? You could be going for positions like this." And so I think after that there were quite a few women on council and doing different things. And it made a big difference, because it was only men who would be on some of those committees. But then they found out that women could do as good a job, if not better. And so I can't remember all the things. I've got them all written down somewhere. But they just happened. I didn't go looking for them. But something would start up and somebody would invite me to go along.